It's been over 65 years since Zorro first hit the airwaves, and the people who brought it to life went on to live stories full of weddings, scandals, heartbreak, and transformations nobody saw coming. Did you know that one of the show's lead actors was found dead a full week after he died, and that the entire world had no idea he was gone? Did you know that one of the show's most beautiful actresses received death threats from a psychiatric patient, all because of Marilyn Monroe? Did you know that the actor who played the funniest character on the show died of throat cancer at just 57, and that his final trip was a farewell journey with his best friend? Today we're telling you the real stories of the people who gave us the legendary Zorro, who made it to see today, who left us far too soon, and what happened to each of them in the decades that followed. Number 1. Britt Lomond as Captain Enrique Monasterio. He was the villain everyone loved to hate, and that's exactly what made him unforgettable. Britt Lomond was born on April 12, 1925, in Chicago, and grew up in New York City. He was 32 years old when he first appeared on screen as Captain Monasterio, the brutal, corrupt commandant of Los Angeles, who served as the show's first and most iconic antagonist. Audiences despised him from scene one. That was the whole point, and it worked. What most people never knew was that behind that villain's sneer was a man with a genuinely heroic past. Lomond had served as a paratrooper in World War II and came home with 3 Purple Hearts, a Silver Star, and a Bronze Star. Then came Korea. He knew what real combat looked like, and that translated directly to the screen. There was something in the way he carried himself as Monasterio that you couldn't fake because he never had to. Before Zorro, Lomond was a nationally ranked fencer, top 30 amateurs in the country, and he'd actually qualified for the 1952 Olympics in Helsinki before walking away from it to pursue acting. That skill made the show's sword fights something else entirely. Both he and Guy Williams agreed to do all their own stunt work, no doubles. The tension you felt watching those duels was real, because it was. Fun fact, both men actually auditioned for both roles at the same time. Williams got the hero, Lomond got the villain. One decision, 2 destinies. After the show ended, Lomond moved behind the scenes. He worked as a production manager and first assistant director on films including Somewhere in Time, 1980, Purple Rain, 1984, and Midnight Run, 1988. In 2004, he published his memoir, Chasing Zorro, honoring the role that defined his public life. That same year, the Netherlands issued a postage stamp bearing his likeness as Monasterio. Europe loved him, maybe even more than America did. On March 22, 2006, Britt Lomond passed away from kidney failure at a care facility in Huntington Beach, California. He was 80 years old, soldier, athlete, actor, author. Number 2. Wyenn as Licenciado, Pina. He was the last surviving cast member from the show's first 13 episodes, and almost nobody covered it when he died. Wyenn was born in 1916. His character, Pina, Monasterio's legal enforcer and lackey, appeared throughout the first season as part of the corrupt machine Zorro was built to dismantle. It wasn't a starring role, but Wyenn made it count. He had a gift for making a scene feel dangerous even when he was just standing there. Pina was a coward with a briefcase, the legal cover for everything rotten in Los Angeles, a type that never goes out of style. After Zorro, he kept working in film and television, though never in prominent roles. Wyenn was the kind of professional the industry quietly depends on. Always prepared, always reliable, never the name on the marquee, but always earning his place on the call sheet. As the years passed and his co-stars left one by one, he remained a living link to the beginning of something. In 2015, Wyenn passed away. With his death, the last direct connection to Zorro's first episodes was gone. An entire era closed without much fanfare. Almost no obituaries, almost no goodbyes. Number 3. Romney Brent as Padre Felipe. His character gave the show its moral backbone, and the actor himself had lived a life that spanned continents. Romney Brent was born on January 26, 1902, in Tampico, Mexico. His real name was Romulo Larralde. Born Mexican, he built his career in London and New York as an actor, director, and playwright. Several of his plays ran successfully in London's West End. He was known on both sides of the Atlantic, He was around 55 when he appeared in Zorro. Padre Felipe, the local priest who hides the persecuted Don Torres inside the mission walls and stands up to Monasterio with nothing but moral authority, appeared in several early first-season episodes. He was the reason audiences understood this show was about something more than swashbuckling. Brent played the priest with a quiet, unshakable steadiness that no action sequence could replace. There's something remarkable about the fact that the man so convincingly playing a Spanish padre was himself a Mexican who had made London his home. Near the end of his life, he returned to Mexico. The circle closed. Romulo Larralde, who had become Romney Brent, went back to where he started. He passed away on September 24, 1976, at the age of 74. Number 4. Nestor Paiva as innkeeper Teo Gonzalez. You might not recognize the name right away, but the second you see his face, you'll know exactly who he is. Nestor Paiva was born on June 30, 1905, in Fresno, California, to a family of Portuguese immigrants. He was the 10th of 12 children, half of whom died in infancy. That kind of beginning leaves a mark. Paiva worked with a relentless energy his entire life, as if he felt an obligation to live for the ones who never got the chance. He was 52 when Zorro started filming. His innkeeper, Teo Gonzalez, good-natured, a little crafty, always in the middle of the action, appeared in 14 episodes across both seasons, often without even getting a credit. A small part, but people remembered him. By then, Paiva already had over 400 films to his name, one of the most prolific character actors in Hollywood history. His biggest genre moment came in 1954, when he played Boat Captain Lucas in the iconic creature feature, Creature from the Black Lagoon. He reprised the role in the sequel, Revenge of the Creature, 1955, the only actor to appear in both films. In 1965, he was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Despite a major operation that removed most of his stomach, the disease kept advancing. On September 9, 1966, Nestor Paiva died in Hollywood, California. He was 61. Over 400 roles, not one of them a lead. Unforgettable anyway. Number 5. Peter Adams as Captain Arturo Toledano. Some actors take time to register. Peter Adams registered in the first frame. Peter Adams was born on September 22, 1917 in Los Angeles. His real name was James Harvey Adams II. He came from money. His brother Morgan was a successful real estate developer, and the two owned significant property together, including a shopping center on Wilshire Boulevard. For Peter, acting wasn't about a paycheck, it was about purpose. He was around 40 when he appeared in Zorro. His captain Arturo Toledano, the hard-edged military commander of the second season, showed up in 4 1958 episodes, a supporting role, but one he filled with genuine authority and carefully measured dignity. Outside of acting, Adams led a life of real community involvement. He served as president of the California Epilepsy Society. He recorded audiobooks for the Braille Institute until the end of his life, volunteering his time for people who couldn't see. That tells you something about the man behind the screen credit. In 1978, Oscar winner Claudette Colbert personally sought him out to play her stage husband at London's Drury Lane Theatre, a fitting final chapter to a long career. On January 8, 1987, Peter Adams passed away in Beverly Hills. He was 69 years old, a man who lived in two worlds, business and art, and never let either one win completely. Number 6. Jan Arvan as Don Ignacio Torres. His character set the tone for the entire first season. He's the reason Zorro first put on the mask. Jan Arvan was born on September 17, 1903 in New York City. Don Ignacio Torres, the local nobleman arrested by Monasterio simply for telling the truth, was one of the first victims of the injustice that gives Zorro his reason to exist. Arvan appeared in the show's earliest episodes and created something essential, the image of a man worth risking your life for. Without that, nothing else on the show would have worked. Arvan was the quintessential working actor, never a household name, never without a job. Decades of film and television work, often in supporting roles, always professional, always recognizable. His face turned up in hundreds of episodes across dozens of series. He was part of the wallpaper of a Hollywood era, John Arvan passed away on March 11, 1979, in Beverly Hills, California. He was 75. You might not remember his name. But if you've seen Zorro, you remember Don Ignacio's face, the man who needed saving. Number 7. Barbara Luna as Teresa, the tamale seller. She sang in French as a child. She learned Japanese for Broadway. And she was one of the first women to go toe-to-toe with Captain Kirk himself on Star Trek. Barbara Luna was born on March 2, 1938, in Manhattan. Her background was extraordinary. Her mother was of Hungarian Jewish and Italian descent. Her father was a Manila native with Spanish roots. That mix shaped her entire career. Luna played Spanish women, Latina women, Asian women. Directors saw whatever they needed in her, and they weren't wrong. As a child, she performed on Broadway. Rodgers and Hammerstein personally cast her as Ingana in the original production of the South Pacific, in French. Then came The King and I. Then 3 years on national tour in the tea house of the August Moon as Lotus Blossom, in Japanese. Languages came easily to her. So did everything else. She was around 20 when she filmed Zorro. Her Teresa, a tamale seller in 4 second-season episodes, was one of her first serious television appearances. She remembered the shoot fondly. Guy Williams, she said, was a genuine gentleman. In film, Mervyn LeRoy spotted her and cast her opposite Frank Sinatra and Spencer Tracy in The Devil at 4 o'clock, 1961. Then came 5 productions of West Side Story as Anita, a chorus line on Broadway, and more than 500 television roles. Her performance as Lieutenant Moreau in the Star Trek episode Mirror, Mirror is still considered one of the finest guest turns in the history of the original series. Today, Barbara Luna is still with us. In 2026, she is 88 years old, one of the last surviving members of that golden generation. Number 8, Myrna Fahey as Maria Crespo. Some said she was prettier than Elizabeth Taylor. She was certainly sharper than most of her peers, and she was gone at 40. Myrna Fahey was born on March 12, 1933, in Carmel, Maine, and grew up in the small town of Southwest Harbor. She was a cheerleader in school. She competed in beauty pageants. She was a finalist for Miss Maine in 1952. In 1956, at her parents' urging, she packed up and moved to Hollywood. Maine was behind her. The cameras were ahead. She was 25 when she filmed Zorro. Maria Crespo, the romantic interest across several episodes, was written as a classic good girl. Fahey played it brilliantly, even though she hated that kind of role. One critic wrote that she looked enough like Liz Taylor to be her sister. Fahey publicly rejected the comparison. She had a personality to match her looks. In 1960, she played Madeline Usher in Roger Corman's House of Usher. And that changed things. For once, she wasn't the good girl. Her personal life had its own dark turns. In 1964, while she was dating baseball legend Joe DiMaggio, she began receiving death threats. The FBI traced them to a patient at a psychiatric facility in San Jose, a man who couldn't accept that DiMaggio was with someone other than Marilyn Monroe, who had died 2 years earlier. A chilling story. A woman caught in someone else's obsession. Myrna Fahey died on May 6, 1973, in Santa Monica. Cancer. She was 40 years old. She's buried in Bangor, Maine, back where everything started. Number 9, Jolene Brand as Ana Maria Verdugo. She was a county fair queen, a competitive softball pitcher, and Zorro's love interest. All of that is true. Jolene Brand was born on July 31st, 1934, in Los Angeles. Her real name was Jolene Marie Bafkin. At 16, she won the Miss Baldwin Park beauty pageant. In 1953, she was crowned Queen of the Los Angeles County Fair, which came with a $200 prize and a lifetime pass. What almost nobody knew, she was simultaneously pitching for the Baldwin Park Rockettes, a professional women's softball team, left-handed, a combination almost nobody else in Hollywood could claim. She was around 24 when she appeared in Zorro. Ana Maria Verdugo, the season 2 love interest, daughter of Don Gregorio, appeared in 9 episodes and immediately clicked with audiences. Brand was charming and natural on screen, and her partial Spanish heritage gave the character an authenticity that wasn't manufactured. After Zorro, she became a fixture in the world of avant-garde comedian Ernie Kovacs. Brand and her husband, producer George Schlatter, were were close friends of the Kovacs family. In 1962, Kovacs was killed in a car accident. It hit them both hard, and for a long time. Today, Jolene Brand is still alive. In 2026, she is 91 years old. She and George Schlatter have been married since 1956, nearly 7 decades. They have 2 children. Her story is proof that the most lasting partnerships aren't built on movie sets, they're built in life. Number 10. Richard Anderson as Ricardo Del Amo. Before he went bionic, he was Zorro's rival. And that context explains a lot about his career, because Richard Anderson was never just a familiar television face. He was the kind of actor who moved quietly through Hollywood history, appearing in different eras, different genres, and beside some of the biggest names of his time. Richard Anderson was born on August 8, 1926, in Long Branch, New Jersey, into a family descended from Russian Jewish immigrants. He grew up loving westerns and Gary Cooper and dreaming about the screen long before television would turn him into a recognizable presence in millions of homes. After serving in World War II, he came back to Los Angeles, studied acting, and landed a contract at MGM. Things were moving, and for a young actor in post-war Hollywood, that meant access to a studio system that could still shape an entire career. He was 32 when he appeared in Zorro. Ricardo Del Amo, an old friend and rival of Diego de la Vega, also competing for Ana Maria Verdugo's heart, appeared in the second season across 4 episodes. He was charming as an antagonist. He didn't need a mustache to twirl, or any obvious villain gesture to make the conflict work. The threat came from something more subtle: confidence, elegance, and the uncomfortable feeling that he might actually be a worthy rival. At the same time he was filming Zorro, he found time to appear in Stanley Kubrick's Paths of Glory, 1957, and in The Long, Hot Summer with Paul Newman. Real fame arrived in the 1970s with his role as Oscar Goldman in The $6 Million Man and The Bionic Woman, making him a genuine television icon. Calm, authoritative, and instantly believable, he became the face of the government handler who stood between science fiction and espionage drama. He became the first actor in American TV history to play the same character on 2 different networks simultaneously, a rare distinction that showed just how strongly audiences associated him with Oscar Goldman. On August 31, 2017, Richard Anderson passed away at the age of 91, a long and full life. From the westerns of the 50s to the bionics of the 80s, from old Hollywood contracts to primetime television immortality, and somewhere in between, even before the bionic age, he had already crossed swords with Zorro. Number 11. Joan Evans as Leonora. They called her the new Susan Hayward. The studios were ready to build her into a star. She chose her family instead, and in old Hollywood, that was not a small decision. It meant walking away from momentum, publicity, and the kind of career machine that rarely waited for anyone. Joan Evans was born on July 18, 1934 in New York City. Both of her parents worked in Hollywood. Her mother was an actress, her father a director. She grew up in the business before she ever chose it, surrounded by sets, scripts, rehearsals, and the strange rhythm of a life where movies were not fantasy but daily work. She was around 24 when she appeared in the second season of Zorro. Her Leonora, the governor's daughter, Diego's third romantic interest, came in during the show's final stretch. Evans brought a softness and aristocratic quality the series needed at that particular moment, a quieter kind of elegance that balanced the adventure around her. She did not have to dominate the screen to be remembered. Her presence had poise, restraint, and a touch of old studio grace. Her film career had started with real momentum. In 1950, still a teenager, she appeared in several pictures and was immediately labeled a discovery. Universal signed her to a contract, and for a moment, it looked as if Hollywood had found another dramatic young leading lady to shape and promote. But then she got married, to producer Kirk Allen, and made a deliberate choice to step back from the spotlight. Family came first. It was her call. She never apologized for it, and that makes her story different from the usual tale of lost fame or missed opportunity. Joan Evans passed away on February 10, 2012. She was 77 years old. Maybe she didn't become the star everyone expected, but she lived life entirely on her own terms, choosing privacy over celebrity, and a real life over the one the studios had planned for her. Number 12. Don Diamond as Corporal Reyes. He was a Jewish kid from Brooklyn. Everybody thought he was Spanish. Don Diamond was born on June 4, 1921, in New York City. His father, Benjamin, had emigrated from Russia in 1906. The family was Jewish, about as far from Spanish roots as you could get. But Diamond discovered early on that he had a gift for languages and accents. He got so good at Spanish that many of his colleagues were convinced he was a native speaker, an actor in the truest sense, a complete illusionist with a voice. He was 36 when Zorro started filming. Corporal Reyes, Sergeant Garcia's hapless, lovable subordinate, appeared in 52 episodes, bumbling but likable, scared of everything and everyone. The scenes between Garcia and Reyes were essentially two-man comedy sketches dropped into the middle of an adventure show, and audiences ate it up. Two guys who couldn't catch a break, up against a Zorro who never lost. During World War II, Diamond had served in the Army Air Corps, but was kept out of combat missions because of his eyesight. After the war, he studied Spanish formally and worked in radio. Post-Zorro, he found another signature role, Crazy Cat in F Troop, 1965-1967. Two completely different comedy universes, convincing in both. In his later years, Don Diamond suffered from Parkinson's disease. On June 19, 2011, he died of a heart attack on his way to a hospital in Los Angeles. He was 90 years old. Number 13. George J. Lewis as Don Alejandro de la Vega. He played Zorro's father. But his own story was just as compelling, and in some ways even more revealing about old Hollywood than the role itself. George J. Lewis was born on December 10, 1903, in Guadalajara, Mexico. Dark, handsome, magnetic. People compared him to Rudolph Valentino and Ramon Navarro. But Lewis stayed in the shadows of his own talent. Hollywood in that era didn't know what to do with a Mexican actor who spoke English without an accent and Spanish like a native speaker. He was too versatile to fit the narrow boxes the industry preferred, and too distinctive to disappear completely. He was 54 when Zorro started filming. Don Alejandro de la Vega, the hot-tempered, proud, deeply principled rancher who has no idea his own son is Zorro, became one of the show's most emotionally rich characters. Lewis played the disappointed father with such precision that viewers almost got frustrated with him, even while understanding that he simply didn't know the truth. His Don Alejandro could be stubborn, harsh, and impulsive, but never empty. Beneath the anger, there was honor. Beneath the pride, there was love. Worth noting, 13 years before this role, Lewis had already been connected to Zorro. In 1944, he played the male lead in the serial Zorro's Black Whip. He literally spent his entire career in this character's orbit, moving through the legend from one generation of screen adventure to another. Few actors had such a strange and lasting connection to the Zorro mythology. After the show wrapped, Lewis leaned into real estate. He'd gotten his broker's license back in 1940. That business gave him a comfortable, secure later life, away from the uncertainty of casting calls and studio decisions. On December 8, 1995, he died of a stroke in Rancho Santa Fe, California, 2 days before his 92nd birthday. A long life, a steady career, and a legacy tied forever to one of television's most beloved fathers. Number 14. Henry Calvin as Sergeant Demetrio Lopez Garcia. He was the show's most beloved comic character, and he died at 57 from throat cancer, after making one last trip to say goodbye to his best friend. Henry Calvin was born on May 25, 1918, in Dallas, Texas. His real name was Wimberly Calvin Goodman. He sang as a child soloist in a Baptist church choir. His voice was something special, a deep, warm baritone that wrapped around you. Then came Southern Methodist University, then Broadway. In the musical Kismet, he played the villainous Wazir and became well known before Zorro ever happened. He was 39 when filming began. Sergeant Garcia, the lovable giant who's technically supposed to capture Zorro but can't quite bring himself to really try, became one of the most beloved characters in American television of the 1950s. Calvin played him with bottomless charm. Garcia was always a beat too slow, a little too unlucky, perpetually hungry, and somehow always in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's what made him immortal. His baritone rang out in the show's songs too, drinking songs, serenades, and once a duet with a young Annette Funicello. In 1973, Calvin traveled with Guy Williams to Argentina for a charity event. The photos from that trip say everything. Calvin looked visibly thinner. The throat cancer was already doing its work. It was a trip between two old friends, and it may have been a goodbye, even if neither of them said it out loud. After coming home, he and his wife returned to Dallas. On October 6, 1975, Henry Calvin passed away. He was 57, far too young. Number 15, Gene Sheldon as Bernardo. He never said a single word on screen, and that's exactly why nobody ever forgot him. Gene Sheldon was born on February 1, 1908, in Columbus, Ohio. His real name was Eugene Hume. His father was a magician, and little Eugene helped with the shows from a very young age. He'd walk out on stage dressed as a girl and appear at just the right moment, completely silent. Silence was his first art form. He was 49 when Zorro started filming. His Bernardo, Diego de la Vega's mute servant, who also pretends to be deaf so he can spy undetected, was a brilliant piece of writing made even better by the actor who played him. Sheldon was a master of physical comedy and pantomime. He could tell an entire story with one eyebrow. His Bernardo laughed without sound, warned of danger without sound, expressed complete astonishment without sound. The audience always understood everything, and that was the magic. Outside of acting, Sheldon was a world-class banjo virtuoso and a vaudeville-era entertainer who had appeared alongside Fred Astaire himself in the 1930s. Broadway followed, European tours followed that. When Disney launched its cable channel in 1983 and began rerunning Zorro, Sheldon was already gone. He never got to see a new generation fall in love with Bernardo. On May 1, 1982, Gene Sheldon died of a heart attack at his home in Tarzana, California. He was 74 years old. In 2011, he was posthumously inducted into the National Banjo Hall of Fame. Number 16, Guy Williams as Zorro, João Don Diego de la Vega. He was born Armando Catalano in New York City. He died Guy Williams in Buenos Aires. And nobody knew for an entire week. It sounds almost impossible, like the final scene of a tragic film. But that was the strange, lonely ending of the man who had once been one of television's most romantic heroes. Guy Williams was born on January 14, 1924, in the Washington Heights neighborhood of Manhattan, to a family of Sicilian immigrants. He stood 6'3", had movie star bone structure and natural physical grace, the kind of presence that looked made for adventure stories before he even said a word. He tried modeling, landed small film roles, and came close to walking away from it all more than once. In 1957, at 33, Disney called him in for a screen test. Walt Disney saw the footage and said immediately, "That's our Zorro." What followed is television history. Zorro became a cultural phenomenon. The theme song was everywhere. Kids drew Z's on fences, on walls, on sidewalks, on anything they could reach. They begged for capes and masks. They copied his stance, his sword movements, his smile. Williams, masked or not, was a star, and for a generation of children, he was not simply playing Zorro. He was Zorro. He did his own fencing, always. He'd trained since childhood. His father had gotten him into it as a boy. And on set, he and Britt Lomond choreographed every duel at full intensity, no pulling punches. That's what gave those fight scenes the edge you couldn't fake, because they weren't faking it. The speed, the danger, the rhythm of the blades, it all came from real skill, real timing, and a performer who understood that Zorro had to move like a legend, not just dress like one. Then came Lost in Space, 1965-1968. Professor John Robinson, patriarch of an interstellar pioneer family. Another hit. Another role that made him instantly recognizable in homes across America. But Williams was increasingly aware of the trap closing around him. He was Zorro and the Space Dad. And that was it. Interesting scripts didn't come. Hollywood didn't know what to do with him, because the same face that had made him famous had also locked him inside two unforgettable images. In 1973, he traveled to Argentina for the first time, and found something he wasn't prepared for. 50,000 people met him at the airport. Kids were screaming, "Zorro, Zorro." Adults remembered him too, with the same affection, the same excitement. He put the costume on, something he'd stubbornly refused to do in the States, and walked out to meet them. Argentina became his new home. In the early 1980s, he relocated permanently to Buenos Aires, to the upscale Recoleta neighborhood. He gave performances, lived quietly, and valued the peace. There, people loved him simply, as a person, not a brand, not a marketing image, not a Hollywood product that had outlived its usefulness. In 1989, word began spreading that Williams had gone quiet. Local police entered his apartment on May 6, 1989. He was there. He'd been dead for a week. The autopsy showed a ruptured cerebral aneurysm. Nobody had known. Nobody had come to check. The great Zorro had died alone, thousands of miles from where he was born, in the city that had embraced him when Hollywood no longer knew where to place him. He was 65 years old. His ashes remained in the vault of the Argentine Actors Association for 2 years. In 2011, Guy Williams was posthumously named a Disney legend, a late official recognition of what audiences had understood decades earlier. He was Zorro, even after the mask was gone. These were the heroes and villains of Zorro, real people who lived wildly different lives, brilliant, tragic, quiet, unexpected. Some left too soon. Some found peace on the other side of the world. Some are still with us. If this video meant something to you, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We have so many more stories like this one. Drop a comment and tell us, which of these actors hit you the hardest? Whose story surprised you the most? Did you know what happened to Guy Williams? We read every single comment. See you next time.